All right, we are just a couple of minutes away from Volodymyr Zelensky's speech to a joint meeting of Congress. To take a live look inside and bring in our panel, Niall Stanage, White House columnist for our partners at The Hill, Brett Bruen, Director of Global Engagement in the Obama White House, Chris Steyerwalt, NewsNation political editor. Gentlemen, appreciate it. Chris, how much of this is political, both for the White House that is all in and the Republican members of Congress who are saying we're not sure about a blank check?
Well, look, Zelensky obviously wants to thank President Biden and the bipartisan support that he's experienced and how crucial it has been to the astonishing success that Ukraine has enjoyed in what was not predicted to be anything like this. So he wants to thank them. But yes, you key in on exactly the right thing. Changing of the guard is taking place here. The Republicans are taking over in the House. They have threatened to cut off some of the aid for Ukraine. They have groused about these things. He has two audiences here. He has the American people who he wants to thank and keep those high approval ratings he's got there. But he also wants to talk to the Republicans who are there to say, you can't give up on us now. You've got to stay with us in this fight.
Brett, Ambassador Bolton was on earlier. He said there's no way that this war ends with Vladimir Putin still alive or while Vladimir Putin is still alive. To that end, are we at a situation where the Biden administration is going to have to, and Volodymyr Zelensky is going to have to continue to sort of justify arms and weapons forever?
No, I don't think forever. I think we need a smart strategy for how we up pressure on Putin, and for that matter, on the oligarchs, the military in Russia. And we will see an end to this conflict. And we've already seen, as Chris said, remarkable progress. And that, quite frankly, was with insufficient, inadequate arms. And what Zelensky is going to do tonight, Leland, is he is not only going to thank the American people, thank the Congress and the administration for that money, but he's going to lay out the vision of where do we go from here? How does this thing end? And Biden, quite frankly, has not done a great job of articulating that. I think Zelensky, who has been a masterful storyteller, a masterful communicator, can do that this evening, and he's got the most powerful platform to do it.
Right. He has the eyes of the world upon him. His first trip overseas is to the United States on the 300th day of the war. A friend of mine, who I think is a brilliant observer of the American TV audience, America doesn't have the attention span for a prolonged conflict. We binge watch. Niall Stanage, how does the White House plan to keep, through season 3, if you will, or 4, America's attention and thus our willingness to continue to pay for what's happening in Ukraine?
Well, they've got a great example of that today and tonight, don't they? They have the main character, if you want to put it that way, here in the United States, in the Oval Office, walking with President Biden, appearing on stage with President Biden, still in his military-type fatigues. I mean, this is a spectacle, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. It is intended to be a spectacle to bring the reality of the war in Ukraine home and to remind people, and this is an important point, Leland, that the Ukrainians right now are struggling once again because of these Russian bombardments with drones of their infrastructure. Attacks just last Friday left about half the Ukrainian population without electricity. The whole point of this is to bring home that the United States has the fate of Ukraine in its hands. The US pulls the plug, Ukraine's going to lose. The US stays the course, it has at least a solid chance of prevailing.
It's a great point. We were supposed to have live pictures of Kyiv right now, but because there is no power, we don't. Chris Steyerwalt, to you. There have been a lot of comparisons made to Winston Churchill's speech before Congress in the days before Pearl Harbor to rally the American people and to explain what the stakes are. Are the American people at the point of viewing Vladimir Putin in the way that they viewed Hitler and the Japanese before World War II?
Well, I would say that the Japanese fleet was a lot more effective in persuading Americans on that matter than the great orator Sir Winston was. But certainly he had his part. Think, though, about where we were in February or so when Zelensky spoke by video link to what was not a session of Congress, but what was a bipartisan group of congressional leaders. And we remember that they packed into that little theater and he spoke to them and the world watched breathlessly because.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.